She spent her 20s being told she had time, and her 30s realizing that time had a very different opinion about that. She spent her 20s swiping left on men who wanted commitment because commitment felt like settling at 24 years old. She spent her 20s building her career and traveling and finding herself and being told this was exactly what she should be doing. The men who wanted to build something real with her at 26 were told she was not ready and she needed to focus on herself. Those men nodded politely and went home and started building something real by themselves, and they got surprisingly good at it. Now it is 15 years later, and she has the career and the stamps and the passport and the apartment she decorated exactly how she wanted. And she would like to get married now, and she has opened the apps, and she is genuinely confused about what she is finding there. The men who wanted to marry her at 26 are now 41, and they have a different relationship with urgency than they used to. Welcome to the Now Women Want Marriage conversation, and it is one of the most interesting demographic stories happening right now. Before we get into it, there is something quick I want to mention because it is directly relevant to everything we cover on this channel. Everything I talk about here I put into a book, and it is called The Modern Stoic, and it covers what it actually takes to be a man in 2026. Money and discipline and purpose, and the specific things that nobody explains to you when you actually need to hear them most. The link is at the top of the description and in the pinned comment, and if anything in this video resonates, the book goes deeper. All right. Back to it, because the story we are telling today is genuinely important, and it deserves to be told with full honesty. The demographic data behind this shift is real, and it has been building for 15 years, and it is now producing visible consequences. Pew Research shows that women in their late 30s are seeking committed partnership at rates significantly higher than a decade ago. Fertility clinic data shows single women freezing eggs at record numbers, and the average age of first-time marriage is rising consistently. Dating coaches report that the most common client profile shifted from women in their 20s to late 30s. The profile is consistent, and it goes like this, and it is not a caricature, but an actual documented and recurring demographic reality. Educated, professionally accomplished, financially independent, and genuinely uncertain about why partnership never arrived. She did everything correctly by the standards of the cultural moment she grew up in, and the results were not what was promised. Now here is where the story gets genuinely interesting. And this is the part the sympathetic articles carefully avoid. The men she is looking for did not disappear, and they did not die, and they did not collectively decide to become unavailable out of spite. They simply developed in ways that 15 years of building produced, and what they built made them less available for rescue. The man who wanted marriage at 26 and was told to wait went home and developed a genuinely good relationship with his own life. He built physical health, requiring no partner's schedule, and financial stability that answers to nobody but himself. He built a social world that is smaller than his 20s, but significantly deeper and more genuinely satisfying than what he had before. He built skills and creative work and purpose that provide a level of daily meaning that he was not finding in the pursuit of partnership. And 3 years into building all of that, something happened that nobody told him to expect, and that genuinely surprised him. He stopped needing the partnership to feel complete, and the stopping produced a quality of life that made the trade less worth making. Not because he became bitter or gave up on connection, but because the life he was building was genuinely and measurably good. The good life is the most underrated outcome of this story because it is the part nobody accounts for in the prevailing narrative. The narrative assumes men are sitting somewhere waiting and hoping, and that female interest will be received with enthusiasm. Some men are sitting somewhere and some of them are waiting, but many of them have moved on from waiting into something more interesting. Now here is where the humor arrives, and it arrives on schedule. And it is the specific comedy of two groups talking past each other entirely. She is on the app looking for a man ready to commit and finding men who are either not ready or not interested on her timeline. The men who are ready to commit are often not who she is selecting, and the men she selects are often not interested in her timeline. This mismatch is not malicious, and it is not a conspiracy, and it is simply two populations whose priorities shifted in different directions. She was optimizing for independence and experience in her 20s, and he was optimizing for partnership and connection in his 20s. Now she wants what he wanted then, and he is no longer optimizing for what she now wants, and the Venn diagram has shrunk considerably. The dating coaches who work with this demographic describe a specific recurring dynamic that plays out consistently across clients. She arrives with a detailed list, and the standards are high, and some of the standards are genuinely reasonable and appropriate. And some of the standards, formed during 15 years of being told she deserved everything, are not currently achievable. Not because she does not deserve good things, because the specific combination she has assembled does not exist in sufficient supply. She wants someone financially established and emotionally available and physically fit and intellectually engaging and ready now. Each of those qualities exists in men and some have several, but the complete package at the age she is targeting is genuinely scarce. And scarce resources in any market command different terms. And the men who have all of those qualities know it very clearly. The man who is 40 and established and available and fit is not experiencing the same urgency she is experiencing right now. He has no biological clock and no deadline imposed by physiology, and he can genuinely afford to be patient and very selective. And patient and selective in a market where he is a scarce resource produces something that the 15 years of building created for him. It produces options and standards and a version of selectivity that 15 years ago would have genuinely surprised him greatly. There is something genuinely important that gets almost no attention in the sympathetic coverage of this demographic shift. The men being sought by women who now want marriage have a memory, and the memory contains specific and relevant information. The memory contains the 26-year-old version of themselves who wanted commitment and who was told to wait or was simply not selected. It contains the emotional investment they made in pursuing women who were not pursuing them back and what that cost them in real terms. It contains the recalibration they did when they stopped pursuing and started building, and what the building produced over 15 years. And the memory makes the current situation feel different from both sides than the sympathetic coverage suggests it should feel. She experiences the situation as a shortage of good men, and she is not entirely wrong because the supply of available good men is lower. He experiences the current situation with a clarity that comes from having been through the alternative and found the alternative wanting. The clarity says that rushing into commitment because urgency has arrived on her side is not the genuine partnership he was seeking. And the clarity is correct, and it is one of the most important and least discussed insights in the entire Now Women Want Marriage story. Urgency is not readiness, and timeline is not compatibility, and wanting marriage is not the same as being ready for genuine partnership. The man who has spent 15 years building is not looking for someone who arrived at wanting marriage because the clock demanded it. He is looking for someone who genuinely and specifically wants him, and who built enough of herself to bring something real to the table. Those two things, wanting marriage because of timeline and wanting him because of genuine compatibility, are not the same thing at all. And the man who has done 15 years of self-development can usually tell the difference between them within a relatively short period. Now here is what the Now Women Want Marriage story actually means at the structural level. And this is the part worth sitting with carefully. It means the cultural advice given to women in their 20s, optimized for independence at the cost of timing and availability. It means the cultural advice given to men in their 20s, optimized them out of the partnership market and into self-development. And 15 years later, both populations arrived at a place where their priorities reversed and the reversal is not perfectly synchronized. She is ready now, and he is no longer waiting. And the gap between those two states is the demographic story that is playing out in the data. The question worth asking is whether this gap is temporary or structural, and the honest answer is that it contains elements of both things. Some men who built good single lives will eventually find someone worth building a shared life with, and it will make genuine sense. The partnership will feel like an addition to something complete rather than a rescue from something incomplete, and that version is good. Some men will not and will continue building, and will look back at 65 on a life that was genuinely theirs and genuinely meaningful. And some women who arrive at the wanting marriage moment will find partners who match them and will build something real from that matching. But some will not find the specific match they are looking for on the timeline their biology is set. And that is a genuinely hard reality. Hard realities deserve acknowledgement rather than comfortable narratives, and this particular hard reality has been coming for 15 years. The cultural moment that told women they had time was describing a world that existed before the men built something significant. The men built something, and the something changed the landscape. And the landscape is now different from the one described to her. Now to every man somewhere in his 30s who has been building and is now being approached by the urgency that comes later. You are allowed to take your time and be selective and require genuine compatibility rather than accepting urgency as a substitute. The urgency on her side is real, and it is understandable, and it is not automatically your responsibility to solve it on a timeline she sets. Genuine partnership should feel like two people choosing each other clearly, and not one person racing a clock toward any available port. You built something real in the years available to you, and what you built deserves to be matched with something equally real from her. That is not a high bar, and it is simply the honest accounting of what 15 years of building yourself is actually worth. And to every woman who is in the Now Women Want Marriage moment, and who is genuinely trying to find something real with genuine honesty. The men who are available and good are looking for what you are looking for, and simply need to see that you are bringing something real. Not the resume and not the passport stamps, which are genuinely impressive and genuinely not what he is evaluating about you. He is evaluating whether you are present and choosing him specifically, and whether the choosing comes from desire or from desperation. Desire and desperation produce different energy, And the men who spent 15 years building themselves can feel the difference. Come from a place of genuine choice and genuine desire and specific interest in him, and watch what the man who built something does. He will meet that energy with everything he built, because that is what men with something real do when they find something worth it. Drop one honest word in the comments below that describes where you are in this story right now at this specific point in your life today. Building, selective, clear, ready, waiting. Whatever single word is most completely honest for you sitting right there right now. Because below your comment is a man rejected at 26 for wanting commitment who needs to see that the building was worth it. Your word might be the confirmation he needs that the 15 years he spent on himself were an investment and not a consolation prize. Every week on this channel, we cover the real conversations about men and psychology and the world that men are actually navigating in 2026. Not the comfortable version that protects everyone's feelings, but the honest one that respects your intelligence and your experience. That is what Mind Over Man is here for every week. And see you next video. And remember that what you built is worth exactly what it cost.